Bless the Lord, O my soul, bless.
Hi, thanks for tuning in to another video on Armor of God. As always, let me start this video by saying thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts for being here with us and for taking the time to watch our videos. And for this video, I would like to share 6 interesting lessons shared by exorcists during their lectures and interviews, and I hope it's something which we can learn and reflect on together. Now buckle up and let's get right on it. The first on the list, I'll be sharing with Father John Szada on the differences between partial, full, and perfect possession.
This is going to sound a little bit frightening, but it's really true. There can be what we call partial possession. The first thing is that in a partial possession, they're fully aware, but there can also be manifestations. I think of a person, for example, that I interviewed, and I gave her a blessing when we were finished. I placed my hands on her head, and she began to vibrate and shake and all kinds of stuff just from a blessing, all right? So there's a physical manifestation, and she's aware that it's happening, but she can't control it, all right? So that's partial possession. Then there is full possession, in which a demon will take over a person, and then in a certain sense, the person will black out. And they're not aware of what they have done or what's going on during the time that the demon manifests itself, all right? Interestingly enough, that's connected oftentimes to something that I'm going to be doing some more research on, to the phenomenon known as dissociative identity disorder.
Father Szada went on to explain that dissociative identity disorder is oftentimes caused by trauma that the individual suffered many years ago, in which, as a defense mechanism, they've kind of split off aspects of their personality in order to be able to find some kind of normalcy. But in fact, when the demons do take possession, it's very similar in terms of its symptomology. So the question that the exorcist often asked is, okay, is it dissociative identity disorder, or is it possession? And according to Father Szada, there are ways that the church has of knowing those things.
The third element is there is a thing called perfect possession. And this is the one that's frightening, that most people don't know an awful lot about. Perfect possession is a situation in which an individual has freely chosen to give themselves totally to Satan. We know cases, for example, and I'm talking about one case right now that I'm involved with, where a priest had already given himself, he was a secret Satanist, Catholic priest who was a secret Satanist, all right, gave himself totally over to Satan, all right. So Satan has possessed the person totally, but the person has chosen that freely. Okay, it's not like they did something. They made a conscious choice to give themselves. That's perfect possession. Those people you wouldn't even know because they don't manifest in the way that other possessions occur. So, and unfortunately, the kinds of people who do that sort of thing are the people we would call positions of power. Yes. They're going to be doctors, lawyers, police officers, judges. Those are the kind of, and those are the ones who are in control in society that are making the decisions that are sending everything to ruin.
Number 2. Msgr Stephen Rossetti was asked during an interview whether there are people that are more sensitive to the presence of evil spirits in a room, a house, or a building. Something like, when you walk into a room and all of a sudden you don't feel good. The hair on your arms and on the back of your neck start standing up.
There are, probably demons in the room. I think all of us have some and may not develop it, that when you sense the presence of evil in the demons, not uncommon. And typically, you feel the darkness. It often makes you feel sick. You feel nauseous. Your stomach head's killing you. And when you're around evil, sometimes it can do that. Now, some people don't. They don't feel a thing. But a lot of people do.
So if you start experiencing something like this, what should we do then?
If I was a priest there, I would start throwing holy water and start saying the rite to get rid of these demons. For yourself, I think I'd throw some holy water and if you feel comfortable telling the family, well, you may want to have a priest come here and bless this room, then I would step quietly out of the room and close the door. You don't really want to expose yourself to evil things, which is why, for example, going to evil places is not a good idea because there's demons all over the place. You don't want to put yourself in harm's way.
Msgr Rossetti also said that it's a commonly held belief that before the fall, we humans had a lot more preternatural sensitivities. We lived among the angels. Adam and Eve saw God in the garden. And so based on this, there was this supernatural sensitivity, and most of this went in the wake of the fall. However, according to Msgr Rossetti, there are some people who do continue to have sensitivities. They're more sensitive to demons being present. This, in a way, is a gift from the Lord. It's also important to remember that there are times when people have these sensitivities, but instead of coming from God, this comes from the devil. Someone who's possessed will often have some similar kinds of sensitivities. And so when these exorcists cast out the demons during exorcisms, oftentimes those sensitivities or cult behaviors will also leave. But when it comes from the Lord, this gift can be very helpful to those in the deliverance ministry to be sensitive when the demons are present and maybe how to get rid of them. Number 3. Father José Antonio Fortea is a Roman Catholic priest in Madrid, and he was appointed an exorcist in the past, but is no longer in office. And here Father Fortea shared an interesting story of what happened during an exorcism.
Many people think that in exorcism all the time are happening preternatural phenomena. But that's not true. Usually the demonic possession is just as is described in the Gospel. If you read the Gospels, in that simple way is demonic possession. But even in the Gospel appear some cases that go farther than standard possession. Sometimes happen very strange things that we cannot explain by natural laws. I have seen, for example, to do a question with my mind, and after 2 minutes the demon inside the possessed person answering that question. I have asked things in different languages, especially Latin, and even children, they understand the question and they answer exactly, specifically what you have asked. I have seen in a case that demon knew the whole Bible by memory and by chapter and verse. But what is more shocking for everybody is levitation. In all these years and so many cases, only twice happened in the chapel that the possessed person levitates from the ground, yes, something like that. But you have to see hundreds of cases to witness that. Most of the time is just what appears on the Gospel. Is a person that after doing some esoteric act, something related to esotericism, began to change completely in some minutes every day, with other face, with other voice, and when he finished he said, "But I have to say, I did not want to do that." And if even appear repulsion to holy things, holy water, crucifixes, going to mass because they feel bad, physically bad, then you have enough suspicion to think that it can be demonic possession.
Number 4. For this one, Father Carlos Martins explained really well how demons live in wounds by giving us an example to illustrate his points.
When I'm presented with a case, I have a questionnaire that I have the person fill out, if the person is capable of it. If not, I have the family members or maybe a close friend fill it out to try to give me as much information as possible. What I'm looking for are wounds, because demons live in wounds. I'm making up a scenario. Timmy and Joey are playing catch on the street. A car slams into Joey, knocks his head clean off his body. The world is now a completely different place for Timmy. It's not a safe place. It's not a happy place. It's a place where little kids playing catch on the street, having fun, can have something so horrific done to them that you can't forget it. No one stopped it, and no one can undo it. So regardless of Timmy's belief in God, whether he even has a belief in God, his theological view of reality is completely changed in that moment, right? No one was powerful enough to prevent that or to undo it. The world is not a good place. It's not a safe place. Now, let's add a little bit more to the story. Let's say Timmy was the one who knocked on Joey's door that morning and asked him to come out to play. How do you think he feels? And let's say he was the one, which he would have been the one, to throw the ball over Joey's head unintentionally. Maybe he even did it intentionally, just to have fun, like, hey, I'm gonna go make you chase the ball. And then the accident happens. What do you think that's gonna do to him? It's gonna put him in a dark place, right? It's a really life-changing moment. The devil is going to exacerbate that. He's going to manipulate that in order to bring Timmy into a place of bondage. Trauma is debilitating because it distorts our view of reality. It causes us to believe lies. And what would be the lies? Well, that I took somebody's life, he is never coming back, I don't deserve to be happy. That death is final. There is no coming back from death. So all of those things, that incredibly horrific self-image that Timmy is going to develop, the devil's going to be all over that.
Father Martins continued explaining that trauma in and of itself cannot cause possession. But when someone starts believing the distortions, and it's very hard not to, somebody who's gone through trauma needs help to interpret reality in a healthy way. And if they don't have that, they can go into an immense place of darkness. The devil's going to be all over that. Number 5. Father Chad Ripperger was asked during one lecture, asking him to explain about demonic manifestation. And as always, Father Ripperger always provides us with an interesting answer.
How demons manifest. He makes the observation that they manifest in a way that's proper to the characteristics of their nature. So there's some feature, some aspects to them that's going to be pronounced or be recognizable that gives you a sense of who and what they are. So, and this is true not just of angels, but it's also true of demons. With demons, sometimes the facial features or certain things are a bit exaggerated, and sometimes it has to do with the specific choice that they have. Which basically means that every demon that manifests is different. Their personalities, because the essence of each angel is different from another. That means literally their differences in personality and who and what they are, their natures, is as different as a grasshopper is from a cow. That's how drastic their personalities are which come through in the manifestations, are much more marked and distinct than human personalities, which tend to be pretty soft in comparison. They don't have the types of exaggerated, is not quite the right word, but the more extreme characteristics. So that being said, every single one of them that manifests differently. And so you'll see them. And once in a while, after you've worked with them for a while, you can just, when the sessions begin, if you've been working with the person for a while and the demon is, because sometimes before the session even begins, the demon's half manifested because he's irritated and tore up that he's got to sit here and take this beating. So you can just look at the person and say, okay, he's ready to go. And just by the way that they can half manifest, they can manifest by degrees. So a lot of times when they fully manifest, that's when you'll see the person, like if it's a woman, she'll change into the figure. It looks like a man. People say, well, are all demons males? Well, technically speaking, angels don't have gender. However, they do manifest as men. And the reason they manifest as men is because of the fact that it has to do with leaving the impression, the image of strength, which is actually what angelic nature actually is. And so the only time that you tend to see demons manifesting as women is if they're to seduce. So as a general rule, they always appear as men. And then those characteristics, as I mentioned, can be very different. So one of the guys I've dealt with in 3 separate cases is Beelzebub, which is another name for Satan. And Satan, when he appears under Satan or Lucifer or Beelzebub, he'll appear differently. But whenever he appears under Beelzebub, it always looks the same. And which is basically the jaw becomes extended, the top of the head narrows, the eyes become bloodshot, the color of the person will instantaneously change completely red, and so that's when you see the. So as soon as you see that change, you just say, okay, this is who it is. But it's by varying degrees. So how they manifest is determined based upon their characteristics. So each one is a little bit different. There are times in which they'll even appear as animals and things of that sort, and that's usually to emphasize a particular aspect of the possession or something in relationship to the case, or some aspect of his personality. But that's generally how they do. So it's very different. Each one is very different.
And finally, number 6. While I've been sharing about demonic possession quite so often on this channel, it is even more important to talk about the most common attack by the devil, which is temptation, which Father Vincent Lampert explained in detail here. Temptation is at the center of ordinary demonic activity, and he uses a 4-stage plan of attack against us.
Temptation is at the center of ordinary demonic activity, and he uses a 4-stage plan of attack against us. When it comes to ordinary demonic activity, the devil begins with deception. It leads to division, which leads to diversion, which leads to discouragement. On our daily journeys, all of us encounter something or someone who is intelligent, concealed, powerful, destructive, and who wants to intrude on our lives in a way that is harmful and destructive. It's worth our while to pay attention to these attacks, for their primary goal is to fracture our lives in such a way that we are pulled further and further away from God. Just consider for a moment these following examples. Have you ever struggled with a coworker who has become difficult to deal with? A longtime friend has become tiresome. It's difficult to pay attention to ordinary conversation. You exert every bit of energy in you to calm a troubled situation. You're surprised to find within yourself inclinations towards hostility, violence, lust, and maybe even the desire to exploit someone for your own satisfaction.
Well, then that's all for this video. Thank you so much for being here with us, and hopefully you've learned something useful for your own spiritual warfare from this video. For those of you who'd like to support our works, I left a link to our PayPal donation down in the description box below. Thank you so much for your support of our works, and we can only thank you by delivering more useful videos in the future. Well then, until the next one, stay safe, stay healthy, and God bless you.